why am I making $250,000, but only $8,000 in profit? Because there's something not
Yes.
adding up there. And what can I do to fix that? Right.
Mm.
And how can I do that? But also that it's still a profit. And that's not a bad profit, even though it sounds really low, which,
Oh,
I have to
yeah.
remember as well is that,
Mm.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it's all perspective.
I'm your host, Tiffany Gleland, an Australian business and mindset coach with 10 years' experience in online marketing and the creator of the Business Bravery Framework. I help coaches to be brave so you can sign more clients even if you hate marketing and sales feel icky. From signing your next paying clients through to launching that dream group coaching program, the Business Bravery Framework helps you take bigger leaps without the mindset spirals. It's helped my coaches double their investment in me, make thousands of dollars, and truly build their dream business. In this episode, I had the pleasure of chatting with Patty Meyer, who is the CEO and founder of BizMagic Virtual Business Management Solutions, where she and her team support female and gender expansive entrepreneurs doing good in the world who feel overwhelmed by the back end tech of their business and need help making it all hum. BizMagic creates, implements, and teaches the tweaks that help its clients make a bigger impact with less stress. Patty has been in business management and working with entrepreneurs for over 20 years, and her favorite things to do in her business are strategizing with clients, building websites, and setting up the tech. When she's not working, she loves to make things with her hands, be in nature, or snuggle with her kitties. With that said, this is an amazing episode, and I can't wait to share with you Patty's stories of business bravery, past, present, and future. Now, who's ready for some business bravery inspiration? Let's dive in. This episode is brought to you by the Brave Coach Breakthrough Program, my one-on-one coaching program where I help new coaches sign their first 2 or more high-ticket clients in 3 months. Back to the episode. Hello, everyone. I am super excited to be here this week with the amazing Patty Meyer, who I'm just so excited to get in and talk to all the good things that she has going on. Patty, please tell us a bit more about yourself, who you help, and what brave things you have going on in your business right now.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me here. First of all, I'm super excited to chat with you. Yeah, so yeah, I love helping female entrepreneurs. That's really where my heart sings and supporting them. I'm a super tech nerd, so I really love helping people with the back end of their business and just sort of making sure everything is working really well, setting up systems and all of that stuff. I mean, that's really what I love. We also help people with sort of all the things, but that's where I really shine and what gets me nerdily excited at any given moment. So, yeah, I really love that. And as far as like brave things happening in my business, I think that, I'm doing something big that was pretty scary for me this past year was I invested in a large program for my business. You know, running an online business can be a scary thing as a whole. And I think that getting that help to kind of move and grow a little bit. I have an agency. It started when it was just me, and it's really grown over the years. There's 15 of us now. So it's turned into this really lovely agency and that I wasn't expecting. But what that means is that I still run my business in ways as if it's just me, and I've had to learn how to grow and how to scale. And so this year, I signed up for a program with somebody to kind of help with that. The focus is on agency owners and supporting people in that way. So it's terrifying because it's very uncomfortable financially. And at the start of the year, I know a lot of people out there had kind of felt that there was a bit of a dip in all the things of people giving you money. And so I had committed to the program last year, and it just, yeah, has been very uncomfortable to kind of keep moving forward, but I'm still going and really pushing myself with that and saying, okay, I'm going to use this program to the best that I possibly can, even though investing in yourself is scary, but it felt like it was a really important step
Mm.
to move my business into sort of the next level, right? I felt like
Yeah.
I had reached a point where I've gone as far as I can go without getting some more ideas and some more help and somebody to kind of push me out of my comfort zone because I'm not pushing myself,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so doing that and somebody who's giving me that accountability and me paying them to do that is scary, and it's been a whole It's been a whole thing. So, I mean, that's kind of one of the things I would say. And then one of the other
Do you
oh,
mind
go
if I
ahead.
ask a question before you jump
Yeah,
into the next thing?
please.
Yeah, because I'd love to know, like, what's an example of like something like a shift that you've had to make in terms of like not just the program you've invested in, but some of the things that they've like gotten you to do in terms of bringing on your team and stepping into that agency owner. Like, what were you doing before that was kind of like, I'm running it as if it's still just me? And like, what were some of those shifts? Yeah.
Yeah. So the nice thing is that I've worked with her in other capacities, this woman that started moving me into this sort of CEO role. And really, I think it was that sort of idea of stepping out of sort of solopreneur and into CEO. So what that looked like for me was, starting to delegate more, starting to take myself out of client work, which is really hard because I'm super relationship based and
Mm.
like I connect so well with the people that I work with. And so to hand them over to somebody else and say, this person's going to take good care of you and trust that they would, and just sort of not know as much as what's happening was terrifying. Like, it's so hard. So I think that was one of the biggest things that I've made. And then starting to show up more and try to sell. She's
Mm.
pushing me to sell a bit more and send emails and things. And I'm like, but I don't. And she's like, Patty, they're not on your list if they don't like. People expect to hear from you selling in your business or they wouldn't be on your email list. And so
Ooh,
that's really
yeah.
hard for me is I'm like, well, I guess that's a good point. She kind of makes the point of like, you don't sign up for like
Mm.
Starbucks or something and expect for them to just send you an email, be like, how are you doing? What's going on for you in your
Yeah, look
world?
at our
You
amazing
know,
latte art, but that's it.
yeah, they're like, here's the new drink, come and buy something, and we all just sort of accept that. But when
Mm.
it comes to this sort of one-on-one businesses, we expect to sort of be engaged and wooed a bit more, I think. And so it
Yeah.
kind of it was a weird change that I had to start making in my head of like, how can I then still have that relationship and still show up in a way where I'm inviting people to respond to me because that's what I love. But
Mm.
also I'm like, but also if you don't want to ever, buy from me at some point, yeah, I have to be okay with you leaving. And so that was probably one of the hardest lessons
Mm.
I've done this year, specifically with her, is her really pushing me to be like, it's okay to sell on your
Yeah.
email list that is made for selling, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like, if you like, I often talk about it like with my clients and things like that. And it's sort of like, for me, it's like, oh, forget about selling. It's like, okay, they have a problem, they're looking for your help, and it's like, hey, here's something that you could do to help with that problem. And actually, if you want even more help, come, like here's how
Yeah.
you work with me and do that stuff.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah.
What was it like? So like sending your first like more salesy email or batch of emails? Like, were you like looking at the unsubscribe numbers and going through stuff like that, or
Yeah. I mean, luckily I also had joined, I did at the end of last year, I participated in a big bundle, end of year bundle. So I had this huge increase of subscribers, which I knew meant it was like a couple thousand or something. So I knew that that meant I was going to be getting a lot of unsubscribes following that. So
yeah.
it actually cushioned that
Mm.
blow for me because I was like, I'm just like, I know I'm getting 10 to 12 every time I send an email anyway, because, I had such an
Hmm.
influx of people who were getting the freebie from the bundle and they
Yeah.
slowly kind of peter off. So I just kind of was like, I'm not looking. If I see the number and that it's that, I'm not looking at who it is because I don't want to be like, oh, that's my client. Why don't they want to hear from me anymore? Or like, so I'm just kind of putting those blinders on and knowing that it's staying about the same, the number of
Mm.
unsubs, which I think is very much in alignment, mostly with the big program thing, the bundle. So,
Yeah.
but it's uncomfortable. But I think that point of just hearing her say in my head, like, well, I mean, let them go then, right? They're not for
Mm.
you, they're not your
Yeah.
people. Or, I mean, the truth is, and when I say selling, I do mean connecting and I do mean helping them. For me, selling is helping, right?
Yeah.
And so they're going to want my help at some point then if they're not interested in hearing what I have
Mm.
to say now and the way that I'm showing up to say it And if
Mm.
maybe I lose a few people while I'm figuring out my footing, I have to just sort of make peace with that and be okay with it because, we're all learning. And so I hang in with people's learning journey, the people who I really like and I'm interested in. And I may be on somebody's list for 2 years before I buy something because I'm just listening to them and I'm following them and getting excited about them, you know?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. There's been some people I've been on like for like a year, especially like coaches and things like that, or those kinds of programs, or even some of the big self-study stuff where it's,
Yeah.
you're investing thousands or something. And yeah, it can be, a year or two before you buy sometimes. And then sometimes it's like you join someone and it's just like right person, right fit, right time, and within a month or two. And yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Oh gosh. So yeah, it's so interesting that you went through that process with the the stepping into being more of the CEO. Were there any other things that you had to do, like maybe with managing your team? And I'd kind of imagine like that could be like similar experiences for your clients who hire you, who have to like let go and some of that stuff
Mhm.
too, right? As we yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, definitely as I scaled, one of the first things I learned was switching my language from I to we, so
Mm.
that both on my website and on calls with people, so that right away they understood that it wasn't always going to be just me.
Yeah.
And so that, that sets my clients up to understand the experience they're getting. And I'm always really clear about this is how it's going to work. You're going to get partnered with somebody and that's going to be your person and all of
Mm.
that. But yeah, there's a lot within, again, that me being relationship driven. I also want to be there for my entire team. And that's a big part of my values is how can I, when I talk about my mission being to support women who are doing good in the world, that includes my team as far as I'm concerned.
Mm.
So, how can I support my team as I do this? And so, it's this really interesting thing where, like I was sending gifts every for all their birthdays and I'd get a little out of control and spend too much money. And then I was like, well, I'm not making much money here. Well, that's because I'm giving everybody gifts and I was sending everybody cards and I'm doing all these things because I just love on everybody so much and I want them
Mm.
to know they're appreciated and I just adore them. So I had to start scaling some of those things back. I had to start actually looking at numbers in a different way. And so, and as I have to understand that when I move into like an agency model, the the price model changes internally a bit, right? And so when it's just you and a person, you can kind of follow with them as they raise their prices and raise their prices as long as you're in a good place. But when you have a whole team that you have to pay for, plus all
Mm.
the software, plus everything, you have to have people within a certain rate in order to make it work and have any sort of profit. So it changes that whole
Mm.
game a lot. So I think that's been one of the hardest things for me is to kind of be
Mm.
profitable as I
Mm.
scale. And it feels embarrassing. And that's why I feel like it's something I want to talk about here. And I'm comfortable talking about it because it's bravery in that way of like, I'm doing this even though I'm not making money in it fully yet, and I know I have moments of it and it ebbs and flows. But I'm not always like last year, I was profitable. The year before, I wasn't. And it's because I'm learning how to play the game and I have to be, or I don't know how to play the game, but I'm learning how to run a business
Mm. Yeah,
that
yeah,
that's it,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
And so it's being that comfortable, learning to be comfortable with knowing that I'm a stepping stone for a lot of the people who work with me on my team, that I get to be a part of their growth journey as they're learning and growing in their own business and building skills. And I get to support them in that because I give them a lot of tools for that. But they're going to outprice me. And I got to be good with that and just be like, okay, good luck. And then I bring in somebody
Yeah.
else that's within my price range. And that's just a
Yeah.
part of, I think, life in this sort of model. But it's hard because we all become like a family and we all love each other. And so it's like, I don't want them to leave, but also I want them to make all the money in the world. And I can't give them all the money in the world, So,
Yes. Yeah.
so
Yeah. Oh,
that's something I think that has had to tweak a little bit also as I've grown
yeah.
in
Yeah.
my business.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm just sort of thinking about that because too, I get really connected to the people on my team and like, yeah, it just Yeah, like a couple of them like worked for me for years and just yeah. A quick question I'd like to go back to where you said you had to sort of like increase your prices and change your pricing model. Does that mean that you had a shift, like you had clients dropping off and then you had to work with a different type of client who could afford that new pricing model? Did you have that kind of shift, or
Great
did something
question.
come along?
Yeah.
Or if you don't mind
So
me asking, because I know like there's a
no.
lot of us who want to raise our prices, but like there can be that thing between actually, hey, the people I'm working with now, they're like that's always going to be too expensive for them. That's always in their head. It's like I'll never pay that much for this service. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm actually around that place right now. And what I've done though, as I've increased my prices, is I've done it really slow. Like I would always start the higher increases with new people coming in,
Yeah.
right? And then people who have been with me, because I have clients who've been with me for 5, 6 years at this point. So for them, we do a little each year and I let them know in advance. And we're so kind of in their business that it's comfortable for them and it makes sense for them. But I'm nearing a point where it's really not going to be feasible for them for me to continue raising prices with them. Part of what I've done is I've really started relying more heavily because we kind of started with almost VAs type task, virtual assistant type task, which was great. And and I love that stuff. And we still do a lot of that work. But because I'm so nerdy with tech and love systems, and we're higher level than that at the same time. So it's starting to lean more into that and speak more in that capacity and starting to change my language I feel better about changing my prices, and also it's changing more into projects. So I'm doing a lot of like system setup projects and higher level things where they're more profitable because they come in, I'm setting up a project and it's a higher cost because it's this higher technical skill, and then they're moving on. And so it gets a little more complicated, right? Because you're always having to keep looking for new clients,
Mm.
but there's still a referral network that's working really well for me. So, but I am at that point where within those sort of ongoing services, I'm going to have to shift to a whole new kind of person in order to continue to raise those prices, or I leave them and really focus on projects, and
Yeah.
really that's becomes more of the bread and butter as opposed to these ongoing projects. So I'm kind of in the midst of that right now, and that's how I'm playing that line currently.
Yeah. What's an example of like, the projects or the setup, the tech or like that you do for people, versus maybe the ongoing stuff? Yeah,
Mhm.
kind
Yeah,
of.
totally. So like an example right now is, I'm migrating somebody from something called Coaches Console, where they've got like all their email marketing and all of that into Kajabi. So I'm taking all their people, moving it, setting up all their marketing, their email sequences, settings, like all of it, courses, that all is getting moved over. So I do a lot of things like that. Or another person I help them research a CRM that they wanted to use that was right for them specifically. Because I'm really a big advocate for finding tech that works for you and not just like this person said to try this. And like, I think it's really important. So helping them kind of find the right tool and then set it all up and teach them how to use it so that they're all fully equipped to do it. So doing those, it's a very different thing than us doing social media or checking inboxes and things like that, right? It's a higher ticket in that capacity because the longevity of what the value is that it gives and the skill set is much higher to know all the
Mm.
back end of all of that stuff.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because that kind of stuff is the foundation of someone's business that they have
Yeah.
for years and years to come. Because changing that stuff out it's a nightmare. Like,
Yeah.
uh,
Right.
one
Yeah.
of
And it's a nightmare that I love. Like that's the stuff
yeah,
I'm like, give
yeah,
me this and I'll just
yes,
do this
yeah,
forever. I'm so happy. But
yeah,
people are like, throw my computer out the window for this one. Like, I don't want to do it. So
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like as you know, like my background was doing marketing services. Now I do more coaching and that kind of stuff. I still have a couple of service-based clients, and like one of them has her like with the email marketing, and It's like everything is like firmly set up in, oh gosh, sorry. One of the big complicated ones. Oh, how
Or
have I
like
forgotten this?
Infusionsoft or
Oh,
the
not
funnel.
quite that bad, but oh yeah, but it's along those lines. Like not a Weber, but it's a
Oh,
something.
Active Campaign.
That one, Active Campaign. Thank you. I can't believe my mind went blank. Like everything, it's like it's so tied into her business and how it works, and yet they just keep inching up the prices on her.
I know.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and like, and then like her business hasn't been inching up the prices on what they do. And so then it's like it's every I swear at the moment every 6 months she's like, all right, I want to get rid of Active Campaign, I want something else, but it's just like there's nothing else that quite does it in exactly what she
Mm-hmm.
needs. And she's got like a
Yeah.
whole franchise network of different franchisees and things like that. Oh
Yeah.
man, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
they get
just
you tethered in there. Yeah. I actually had just switched to Active Campaign from ConvertKit myself for my own business
oh yeah.
right as they were making that big hike. And I was like, oh no. But
Yeah.
there were specific things that I just was like, I can't
Yeah.
quite do this in ConvertKit. I need Active Campaign. And they
Yeah.
kind of have it cornered. And so that market, that bit there are
Yeah.
very specific things that only they can do. But it is rough. Yeah. Because it is, you
Yeah.
want to just leave, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard to make that choice. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so at the beginning you were talking about brave things you were doing, and then I was like, I've got questions. Was
Oh,
there anything else that you were going to talk about brave things, or have they come up in amongst the questions that I've asked?
yeah. So the one other kind of big thing for me as in kind of a personal way that's also related to my business that I'm doing that I've done in the past and I'm doing again, but like times 20-ish, is I have my next team retreat is happening next month and I have hired people to come and do video and photos. And I struggle with, for those who aren't seeing it on the podcast, I struggle with my body size and things like that. And so the way that I feel about my body and my comfort in that. So I am just like when I got the professional photos done last summer, I was horrified because you're not used to seeing yourself in that way and putting it
Yeah.
out there and everybody sees me from here up, from the
Yes.
chest up. I'm on Zoom all the time. And so
Yeah.
people don't see me from here down and we all struggle with our own stuff. And so for me, my body view is a bit of that. And so not only am I now doing photos again, I'm also doing video, which can capture you in the most lovely of positions at any given moment. But I think it's really important to do because I
Mm.
need professional photos for my marketing and for my content. And I think it would be really great to have some videos to do with content. And
Mm.
I'm terrified and I'm super uncomfortable but I'm doing it anyway because I think that it needs to happen. So that's kind of the other brave thing that I'm doing next month. And so I'm currently working on my business. And so I'm doing a lot of,
Mm.
internal work to just breathe. And last year when I got the photos done, I printed them out and I put them around my apartment everywhere before I shared them with anybody. So I got used to seeing myself and the
Yeah.
photos. And so anybody who came to my house that didn't know what I was doing just saw pictures of me everywhere. And I'm like, I promise I'm not that into myself, but it looks like I am
Oh,
because they're just everywhere.
oh,
But it was so helpful. So I kind of think I'm probably going to do that again. I'll probably just obsessively watch the videos, but not in a
mm.
unhealthy way, but in a way where I just get used to seeing myself and
Yeah.
seeing my body. So then I can start to share it publicly. But I think there's a lot of people out there that struggle with that. And I don't think we
Yeah.
talk about those things enough and the challenges that a lot of us have with being in an online business world that requires us to show up visually in so many ways when we don't always want to and we don't always feel comfortable doing so. And that's one of the reasons that I am pushing myself and I pushed myself last year to do it because let me be an example then of a plus size lady who's feeling herself in her dress and whatever else and being like, that's it. And I'm putting myself out there because it's just a body and I'm an
Yeah.
awesome business owner and those two can exist. And so that's kind of the other big thing that I'm doing right now.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, I need you to know you are not alone in that. I too am like a curvy girl, and like even though I have over the last couple of years lost some weight, I still, like nowhere near where I could be, I guess, or something like that, but definitely on camera and that kind of stuff. And like you have to find somebody who's good at taking photos with curvy girls, because there's definitely ways to stand and poses and things like that. I did a shoot, I did a favor for a friend like decades ago, or like, a decade ago, for a friend, and like there was a shoot, and there was actually like a proper model, like like a little, you guys would say size 2, we call it size 8.
Right.
But
Yeah.
basically, and I'm like, 4 sizes bigger. I'm, like in that mid-size, almost plus size, but I felt giant sized.
Mm.
And the photographer, like it was the most excruciating experience, because I was very introverted at the time. I wasn't comfortable on camera. The photographer was like, he was so into the model, because obviously photographers and models, they have a way of working together, and he was getting what he needed and things like that. But in my mind, I just saw the very skinny girl, and all of this baggage, and he's just like, oh, so I need you to do this, and I'm just like, and like,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to do the poses and things like that, and it just, yeah, oh man, the photos came out okay, but yeah, in the editing, he left lipstick on my teeth, and I'm just like, oh man, and it's
Oh
just.
no.
And it was part of his calendar thing that he did. He's like promoting his
Oh my
photography business.
gosh.
And I mean, like I learned photography years later, and sort of can see it from a different perspective. But yeah, like I just know that you're not alone in that. And the same for me when I do videos or something. It's like, I might strategically put things in front so that like maybe they don't see lower down or something like.
Right. Yeah. 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 When I first got the photos done, when he did them inside first, and then he took us outside, which is the one nobody's ever seen, the ones that are inside, and they never will. But he did it like behind this big white screen and this big light. And so like my face looked kind of pushed back, which really accentuated 4 or 5 chins or so. And then he had it like there was this big like 60-inch television right next to us, and he showed the photo on the 6 of me this close up. So I had this giant untouched brand like photo of myself, and I was horrified. All of us were, no matter what our issues were. Every single one of us that had it done, because it was a retreat. And so everyone was like, are my teeth that yellow? Oh my God, look at my pores. It's like, why would you put it right there? It was so hard. So after that, everything small looked fantastic. But I'm sorry, my Slack went off.
Yeah, oh, that's right. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Just yeah, you're not alone in that. And I salute the bravery, and I actually love how you putting photos of yourself up so that you can get used to how you look, because like it's not the same as looking in the mirror, and like it does look
Yeah.
different. And especially because you've got the curve of the lens, so like the lens is like the camera really does add extra weight to you as well, and you're just like,
Yeah.
oh, that's not how I look. It's
Right. Yeah. 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 It's challenging, but I think it's a really powerful experience to just sort of make that peace with yourself and do that work. And I literally worked with a coach leading up to that to like get to a point where I'm like, okay, this is a body, and it's my beautiful body, and it is what
yeah,
it is. And I may not be in the love portion of time, but I'm in the acceptance portion of like, I accept my body. One day,
yeah,
maybe I'll love her, but for now, we're accepting of her and her size and where she is. And like we just
yeah.
did a lot of work like that got me to a point where I could do that. So I'm really pulling those tools in now as I'm getting ready, for next month. But the fun thing is I get to do that with my team, and it's all of us together doing this stuff. And
Yeah,
so I think it's worth it, and it'll be enjoyable. But man, it can be scary. That's for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I'd love to sort of travel back in time to the before time, and when you started your business, maybe this business. I'm not sure, this may not even be your first business, but like what brave things did you have to do to get started, or like brave like perspective shifts or that kind of stuff? Yeah.
Yeah. So it really is my first business. I worked before I started doing all of this. I worked in a theater, a nonprofit theater, and I was the operations manager and did lighting design and stuff like that. And on the side, I was helping this woman entrepreneur in her business so that I could make money and make ends meet and that sort of thing. So it was a nonprofit theater. So I started learning these skills then, but through that period of time where I was working at both of these places, I had always thought that I wanted to be a psychologist, and that was what I believed my calling was. And so in order to sort of do that, I kind of took this big leap and I quit my job and I kept working for this woman on the side a little bit, and I went to school full time. And this was in my early 30s. So I wasn't a little youngin' when I did this. And so and my partner at the time was really supportive of it. And so I just sort of leapt and jumped into school full time and started doing that. And then as I moved here to Texas, where I live now, and I was finishing online, I was planning on going to move on to my bachelor's. And like half my credits didn't transfer from state to state. And just all this stuff happened. And I just realized it was going to take so much more time for me to get my degree in psychology and so much more money. And I really started thinking about it. And I was like, I love business. Like, and I'm really good at it. And I love tech and I'm nerdy about it. And so I kind of started having this moment of like, well, what if I just didn't keep going in the school thing that I left everything for? And what if I try this thing? And so that's what I did I had moved here. So I was staying with my mom to help her out a little bit and get on my feet. So it made it a little easier because I didn't have the overhead that a lot of people have when they start a business. And I was able to just sort of focus on that. But I really didn't know what I was doing. I just knew I wanted to do something I loved and I wanted to support people and I didn't want to work in other people's way, like the way that they worked anymore. I wanted to find my own path. And so, yeah, I got my AA, I finished that. And then that was that. And I was like, let's do this thing. And so I started building this. And so it was a lot of leaping into the unknowns for me and just sort of saying, what does my heart feel like it wants? And just sort of trusting that and hoping that the rest of it fell into place. And so far, so good. So but it wasn't always an easy path. But I feel like that's been sort of the thing for me, is really just sort of going, I don't fit into a box. Like I can't imagine myself working in an office forever. Nothing to those that do, nothing against that. But for me and the way that I work and I function, I'm not a morning person. I don't want to have to get up early and commute. Like it's just not my jam. And so being able to create my own business and my own world and my own working hours and choose the people I work with to have in my life. Oh,
Yeah.
it's amazing. Like it's so drama free. And it's like, if I get a client that's drama, I'm like, okay, bye.
Yes.
you know so yeah, so I think that's kind of what I did to sort of get to where I'm at, was just a lot of trusting myself and leaping blindly and hopefully forward and seeing what happens with my skill set.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh. What was it like finding your first client or that kind of stuff? Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was nice because I had a really good community still from my theater community, because it was all these solo performers in my theater that I worked with. So there were some of them that needed help, but really in the beginning, because this was kind of before VAs were VAs and this was a thing. I had never even heard that term at that point. And so my first client I found on Craigslist. And so that was still kind of a big thing, a way to find work and stuff, at least here in the
Yeah.
US. And so that's how I had found my first couple of clients, was through that. And then it was slowly from there that started to create some referrals, and I started being able to meet people, and then it started to really grow into the online world, and it started to collide with the VA explosion kind of, and so then it became more of a need. I think at the time I came in right at a good time as far as that goes. But yeah, it was pretty much, but in the first, like I would say the first year, because I see like my own Facebook posts from that first year where I'm coming up and being like, I think I need to get a job. I think I need to, I don't know that this is going to work. And I don't know, and so I could see past Patty panicking. And I remember I interviewed at a Walmart for the optometrist office there, or something like that, like the eye center. Cause I was like, this isn't going to work. And I didn't get it, thankfully. And so I just kept on, and then it started just growing and happening. But yeah, the beginning was a little, little rocky, and just sort of, I don't know, crossing my heart and hoping that things worked. And so lots of spaghetti at walls, I think, in the beginning. And then I got really lucky with referrals. That's honestly what happened. Is I got lucky. I'm not going to pretend that, that it's the same for everybody. I know that that's what happened for me. I mean, I'm good at what I do, but also you got to get the right people in the right, and I just got really lucky as far as that went.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh. That's so inspiring too, like just how it was like, oh, I wanted to find my path and wanted to set my own like terms of my life and things like that, like, the hours and all of that too. And just, yeah, it's
Yeah.
beautiful how it all came together, even with those referrals. I mean, like, like that's a testament to like time you put in building relationships even
Yeah.
before you had a business, right? So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, it's not like, I mean, yes, it's parts luck, but it's also part, I don't know, like, your effort and your, yeah, that
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
It's true. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great point. Is I think, and that's important for everybody else who are referral based as well, is that it says a lot to us if we have people who are referring people to us, and
Mm,
that we're doing something right. And so yeah, that's a really great thing. And that, yeah, I think that kind of going back to my earlier bits of growth is made it scarier for me when I was scaling and starting to hand some of my clients off, right? Because so much of it was referral. And I've had moments within my business where I hired poorly and had some not great account managers and lost clients before, but because of that, which was devastating, and those were some really powerful lessons. So it's definitely been a roller coaster, this whole
yeah,
process. I think it
yeah.
is with anybody, right? With any of our
Yeah.
business,
Oh,
it
yeah.
really just is.
Yeah. I think that whole like hiring people thing, like there's always places or like I don't think there's anybody who knows how to hire people straight away. Like
Yeah.
it's because it's relationships and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, hang on, oh yeah, okay, I made this decision for that reason, but actually that's not what I'm looking for. That's not the right person for the role. And yeah. What
Mhm.
kind of things do you do differently now to find people who are the right fit for your team? Like, yeah.
Yeah. So I've become very good at hiring people and interviewing, and so much so that I do that for clients sometimes because it's become very easy, but it's through me learning how to really ask the right questions. And really, like, the biggest thing I've learned is to try to let the person talk as much as possible and just shut up. Like, the more I can listen to them and
Yeah.
hear kind of on their own without prompting them what they want to share about their excitement with a business and why they do this work and how they show up and how they bring themselves in. Those are
Mm.
the ways that I can really learn who they are and how I can kind of trust them a little bit more, because a lot of times when we're hiring, we may dive right into talking about ourselves and our business and all of that, and the person is just like, yeah, I can do that, yep, I can do that, yep, I can do that, and you're like, great, you can do those things, you're hired.
Yeah.
But you know what, but there's no proof of that. And I just like to sort of start by letting them talk for the first half of the interview and just sort
Mm.
of really listen to them and feel if we're a fit in that way. The other thing I've learned is trials. We do test things now, because I would
Yeah.
just sort of let people dive in, and then I would say, oh, okay, because some of us are really good at talking and not so great at our actions. And so it was a lot of learning that and saying, okay, now I need some test projects as I get started, so that, or I'd let them do stuff for me before I'd let them do anything for my clients, and really start to just sort of be able to test the waters a little bit with them first before I
Mm.
let them fully kind of dive in. So that was, I think that's what I do mostly different, is just let them talk more, and yeah, kind of test them, give them some test tasks and projects.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh. I remember like back in the long, long ago in the before time when I was an employee and I was definitely way more introverted. I hadn't done all of this sort of extroverted stuff that I'm doing now. And like I'd get into interviews or something and it would be like that where they just, they talk and they do all the talking and like basically I'm just like, yes, I can do that. Yes, yes. And at
Yeah.
the end, I still like, even though they'd said, oh, right, great to start, I still had this feeling of like anybody would have done. Like I didn't know if I was actually the right fit for the organization or something like that. And
Mhm.
I was a people pleaser, so I made it work and they were never disappointed because I, work super hard. But yeah, I just like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, but exactly. You can see in that how somebody could easily hire somebody who's not the right fit because they're just, and it's that part about being comfortable with that. And yeah, it's
yeah,
hard. Hiring people is really hard.
definitely. It's definitely like because like for me when I'm hiring people like I'm looking for like their attitude and their like soft skills because it's like I can
Yeah.
probably teach you all of the tech and the skills and I can break
Yes.
that down pretty easily, but yeah, it's like what is your attitude towards work? What is your attitude towards like what happens if I give you instructions but there's a step missing? Do you just stop everything or do you have the initiative to try and like at least go to Google and work it out
Yeah. Yeah.
before
Yeah.
coming
Yeah.
to questions and yeah, some of that.
Yeah. Same thing. Yeah. I always say that too. I'm like, I would rather train somebody on the tech and the hard skills and have them. For me, it's how are they showing up and are they a fit for the team? I mean, we're warm and friendly. And, when people leave my team, we have a channel in Slack that they all stay in and want to hang out and chat and they still come to our happy hours. And, two
Mm,
people coming to our retreat no longer work with us, but they're coming anyway, and it's like, so we have this team. And so finding people who fit into that sort of dynamic and that are passionate and loving of what they do. And that's the difference for me is, we can find anybody in a lot of ways to do the work, but it's how they show up and why they're there that I think really makes a difference as far as
yeah.
longevity and making a beautiful team to help people the way you might want to.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. So there's something that I thought of. You mentioned way, way earlier, and then it came back up in my mind. You talked about how like you had a profitable year the year before last, and then like this year, or I don't know, was it this year or previous year, it wasn't as profitable. And I guess I just wanted to talk to that a little bit because like it's not talked about enough.
Yeah.
Like there's this whole thing, it seems like in order to be successful, that you have to have profit and actually like there's businesses like I always like to think of like Amazon, like it made a loss for the first 7 years of business
Yeah.
before, and like that's always something that I like to keep in mind because like sometimes being in a business like you make strategic decisions to make a loss because it's like, oh, I'm hiring people or I'm building foundations and the tech or things like that as the different focus. And yeah, like
Mhm.
from and I've done so much talking, this is not a good question, but what have you like from
That's
your
great.
perspective, like please tell me, like, how do you feel about that? How do you work through those thoughts and how do you come to a great place with it? Because it seems like you have come to a great place with it. So,
Yeah, I think I go through phases myself. Sometimes I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this to myself? But then there are moments that I'm like, oh my God, and my heart is so full and bursting with everything I do that I wouldn't have it another way, which I think is just the normal existence of entrepreneurs. That's how we feel. Some days we're like, what is wrong with me? And some days we're like, this is the best thing ever. So I think, yeah, you're totally right. And there's a statistic that I can't remember the actual numbers for, but basically, like most businesses don't make it out of the first 2 or 3 years or something like that.
yeah.
And women, especially, like
Mm,
it was something like 10% of women make it past the third year. I can't remember what the statistic, but it is crazy low of what it is. And I think that's one of the things is that we expect all these things when we start a business. And one of them is that we're just going to make all this money and
mm,
people look at a business owner who's showing up and I can come out and I can say, last year my gross income was $250,000, which was amazing to me. But my profit, even though it was profitable last year, it was only like $8,000. So it's still like,
Yeah.
everybody's like, you're bald, you've got, I'm like, okay. It looks like it, but I've also paid an entire team and I've done all the, like there's this
Mm.
whole other thing that's happening behind the scenes. And so the net is very different. But yeah, before last year, it was, yeah, no profit at all. And I really sat down with myself and I thought, I've been in business at that point was 4 years, 5 years. And I thought if I can't make profit in this next year, at least something to show that I'm on an upward trajectory,
That's,
I need to think
yeah.
about it a little bit because
Mm.
this is my like, am I going to be able to own a home? Am I going to have money for retirement? Like I need to think about myself as an
Mm.
individual in
Yeah.
this. And
Mm.
that was a sort of a reality that I think happened after that last year in 2022 of not having really any profit at all. And again, my numbers looked really great when you look at the gross, and I was doing so well. And that was my first over 100K, I think, year. And so yeah, it was that. So last year, even though the profit wasn't a ton, it was enough for me to be like, all right, we're doing this. And I
Yeah.
learned a lot. And that was part of why I was like, I'm gonna join this program that's gonna push me a little more out of my comfort zone, push me into the space that I need to be in. And I realized that I didn't really pay attention to numbers as much as I should have. And that I wasn't doing that because again, that's a skill that you have to learn. And we go into business not realizing that we need to think about bottom lines
Mm.
and all of the things that go along with that. And what does the profit margin even mean? And
Mm.
like these are things that I don't think I really realized that I needed to pay attention to as much, which also feels a little embarrassing when you're in a business, but it's true. And we all have to learn somewhere. And so it
Yeah.
was starting to make those changes. And so that's really what I'm embracing this year is I'm really looking at numbers. I'm really tracking everything. I mean, I'd always tracked loosely,
Mm.
but I'm really tracking everything and looking
Yeah.
at percentages and understanding what they mean and connecting that to my pricing. And
Hmm.
that's where it changed is I actually started working with my brother who was a manager in like big corporations and things like that. And he's the one that was like, Patty, what? And I was like, oh no. And so we started looking at the numbers and he's like, well, this is how we want to look at pricing. And these are the things. And so that helped him with my project level pricing. So I'm
Mm.
hoping that even though this year's been a little harder because of economy and things like that and this program, that I'm still going to be enough in even though I think my gross will probably be lower, I think my profit will be higher. So I'm hoping for that, and that's going to become the difference. So I think it was really being able to stop and instead of panicking only
Mm.
trying to look at it from a different perspective and like logically and logistically, right? And say,
Yeah.
okay, well, why am I making $250,000 but only $8,000 in profit? Because there's something not
Yes.
adding up there. And what can I do to fix that, right?
Mm.
And how can I do that? But also that it's still a profit, and that's not a bad profit, even though it sounds really low, which
No.
I have to
Yeah.
remember as well is that
Mm.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it's all perspective.
Yes, yeah, yeah. And from everything I'm hearing that you're talking about too, is like you're looking at the numbers in this kind of detached state. You're not like sort of like one of my things in the beginning was definitely like attaching it to my ego and
Mhm.
and it's like, oh, how especially like when I started, I was more of like the marketing expert, and it's like, oh, how can I call myself a marketing expert if
Right.
the numbers aren't how they should be? And like my father was an accountant, so I had some of the accounting background, but I didn't enjoy the numbers, and I didn't enjoy looking at the numbers, especially when in the beginning, and you're like trying to get your clients, and that like you're spending more than you're making because you can see, or like I could see the vision, right? but
Mhm.
but my ego didn't want to look at the numbers because it was like, oh, see, like here's more evidence that you're never going to make this work and things like
Right.
that. But
Right. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
now like I'm in this phase where it's like actually I'm getting connected to the numbers and I'm not making them mean anything about me, and
Oh,
just like getting into like here's the truth of the matter and here's what I'm spending. But I do feel the pull of like the vision, like I can see the vision and I want to invest in that vision, and then sometimes it doesn't always come to fruition, like I can
yeah.
see all the clients coming, but yeah, sometimes the people aren't like necessarily there too. Do you ever
Yeah.
have that with what you're doing, like seeing the vision or yeah.
Yeah, like seeing the larger vision
Mm.
of the business and the direction that it could go with, especially financially and in that sort of perspective.
Yeah, yeah. I think like maybe for me, it's like I can see the vision. So it's like, okay, I'll dip a little bit more in my savings to get these
Mhm.
things because if I get the clients, then it will all pay off, but then it doesn't
Right.
always.
Yeah, if I build it, they will come kind of. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think that's one of the reasons that again, this program for me and that investment in that was sort of, I can see the direction, like I can see the potential that this can take me to and where I can bring my business and how I can be able to show up and support people and be able to then have them come. But it doesn't always happen that way, right? And that's part of it for me this year, right? Was that I kind of came into going like, I'm gonna kick booty because I'm investing in this thing and I'm stepping out of my comfort zone. But then the rest of the world was like, we're burning down. And no, not everybody wants to spend money right now. And so I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's not happening. So,
Yeah.
you have to kind of adjust that. So it's true. I mean, the reality isn't always there.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
it comes to that. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. But the
Yeah.
vision's there. And I have a lot of ideas of, loose ideas of where I kind of want to go. But I also, you and I talked about this before we started recording of like,
Mm.
you know, kind of just rolling with it and seeing where I go and what happens, because I think part of it for me is I never planned to get to even this. Like I didn't plan on having an agency. I really just started to do something that I loved. So to imagine what my business might look like in 5 years from now, I can't even fathom that. So it's hard
Yeah.
for me to have a vision. And I'm like that with art in general too. Like I'm not like the visualization type. I'm not sure. It's not one of my strengths is to be able to do that because I'm very analytical. I'm very logical. I
Mm.
like to sort of, figure things out as I go. So therefore I don't tend, like a lot of entrepreneurs I work with, they have all these ideas and they want to do all these things. I'm like, like I just want to keep helping people and whatever that looks like, it's gonna look like, and that's sort of where I tend to find myself.
Yeah, yeah. I go between those two sort of sides of myself because I do have a strong visual side, but then there's times where it's just like I don't know, like especially like 5 years ahead. That's a question I'm not sure I can answer because like there's just things like if I think about 5 years ago, I don't know, like AI wasn't as much of a thing. Like you don't know what's going to be invented between now and 5 years. And it's
Yeah.
like if I'm working towards like I want to, but then by the same token, I am sort of at least can do like the next year or two sort of
Yeah.
like that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Definitely.
yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Yeah, I want
um,
to touch on one thing
yeah,
that you were
please go.
talking about with yourself and your money and sort of how like you started separating yourself from the numbers in that way, not taking it as personally. And I just
Yeah.
wanted to say that I think that that's such an important point because I think if we also then flip it and look
Mm.
at it with our pricing in that
Yeah.
way, because that's the other side of it is we price ourselves and our services based on what we think our worth is or what we think other people think our worth is. And so I think that's the lesson I've learned too in this year that's also really scary is that when I'm pricing, again, it's that looking at the numbers more objectively and saying, okay, how much time does it take me to do this? And how many years did I learn this skill? And how much money did I spend in growing this skill? And how much am I paying my team to help me create this product or service? And
Mm.
starting to really look at things in that way, it helps with pricing a lot because that's one of the most
Mm.
stickiest places that
Yeah.
that we end up in is with pricing, and because we feel so connected to our worth with our pricing and our businesses that we
Yeah.
end up a lot of times struggling with that. And so that's, I think, another, and just like you were saying, I
Mm.
think separating yourself a little bit from your pricing too helps.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh. Actually, even as you say that, like I've sort of redone my packages recently, like my coaching packages, and yeah, I'm doing more of that, like, yeah, disconnecting myself from the pricing too. And I didn't realize until you pointed it out, actually, it's like, oh yeah, there is a bit more of that and a bit more of the, hey, here's the result we're going to create together. And here's the kind of effort we're going to put in, and here's what I think that's worth, and here's the steps we're going to go through. Because I mean, like when I started out doing services, I'd like work out, okay, how many hours is it going to take me? And especially like in the early days when I used to overthink everything would take me so much longer. And then if I was like, here's my hourly rate and here's how many hours it's going to take me, and I'm like, no one's going to pay that. I wouldn't pay that for this.
Yeah.
Yeah, like thankfully I don't overthink everything now like I used to, and
Yeah.
I get things done so much faster. But at the same time, oh man, just yeah. How do
Mm.
you ever get that or have had that in the past? And yeah, how do
Oh yeah.
you?
When
Yeah,
I first started this business, when I first started BizMagic, that first client that I talked about, and many clients in the beginning, I literally would negotiate myself down in my rates. Like I would say on a consult call, I would say, okay,
yeah.
my rate is, whatever, it was 25 at the time or something like that. And I'd say, oh, but $20 is okay too. Like they haven't responded at all. They've said nothing. And I've been like, oh, and so it took me I did that for a long time. And the same thing, yeah, packages and stuff like that. I think I did websites for $500 or something for a while. I think I did a $300 website, which is bonkers.
Yeah.
Now, it's a minimum of $2,800 to do a website. But at the
Mhm.
time, I was doing
Yeah.
websites for $300 to $500 because, you're
Yeah.
learning. I don't know. And I don't trust myself fully yet. But yeah, it's
Mm.
like same thing where you're like, well, if I look at my hourly rate and then how many hours, and you look at it from this perspective, but then you kind of undercalculate things and it's all sorts of stuff. It's a messy personal
Mm.
ball of goo that happens when you're first pricing and for a long time. So it took me, it's probably just the last 2 years of my business that I finally been like solidly, 25 to 3,000 for a website,
Mm.
and a higher level for that. And my
Yeah.
coach has been really helpful for that in the program too, where I'll say a price and she's like,
Really?
let's
Yeah.
raise that up. Well, is that really like, and
Yes.
oh, okay, yeah. So I still do. And so now I literally, that's why I've now I have a spreadsheet. And
Yeah.
so that's what I do is I write down how many hours it's going to take for this thing. And I write it all out so that I won't, because I was just like, let's just say this number. And like, I wasn't even
Yeah.
really thinking about it. I was just pulling
Yeah.
numbers out and saying, sure, you want to do this? Okay, how about this
Yeah.
much? And I
Yeah.
wasn't, and that's why I wasn't making profit.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
now it's another adding a function in to keep me from doing that. I'm not allowed to price anything unless I put it through my spreadsheet first, so
Yes.
that
Yeah.
I'm keep myself, from being my own worst enemy.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I had to do that when I was doing services too, because you'd be on a call with a client, and they'd be like, "Oh, I was thinking about this thing and that thing," and I'd feel the pressure to have to give them a price on the call. And then it
Yeah.
was like, actually, okay, like let me just work this out. I will get it to you within 24 hours so that I can sit down and make sure, like for me, it was in my notebook, but like, price it out and just, yeah,
Yeah.
have time to think rather
Yeah.
than because in order, like, because what you're doing in that, well, what I was doing in that moment was a bit of what do I think they'll pay, and
Yes. Yes.
and
Mm-hmm.
and then
Mm-hmm.
and then and then I'd sit down and be like, oh, this project is more complicated than I realized. Oh no, and yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah, totally. 100%. I've done that too so many times. Yeah, I'm imagining, and that's a projection too, right? Of like us deciding what they're like. We're not giving somebody else an opportunity to pay
yeah.
us and to invest in us and therefore themselves in their own business. And so that looking at
Mm,
it from that perspective sometimes helps too,
yeah,
because yeah, we can start to we're creating limitations for other people, but they're our own because we're really that's us undervaluing ourselves and we're
yes,
putting it on them. We're projecting, but we're
yeah.
like, well, I think they'll only pay me,
Mm,
But yeah, I've done it and just
yeah.
countless times. Same,
Yeah,
yeah,
yes.
absolutely,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's definitely, I think it's like it's the phases you go through in business of just, learning that stuff and getting to a point where it's like, no, these are my prices. And if you say no, that's completely okay because there'll be other people who will say yes. And yeah.
yeah,
Mm,
absolutely, yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay, this has been an amazing conversation and so many amazing points. And definitely, I'll be thinking about this all day. And it's inspired me around like the money and the bravery and, even like getting on camera, all of that good stuff. If there is just one last question, if there is anybody who is listening to this who's like, oh, I want to do the photo shoot or I want to get on my numbers, or, I want to hire help, or, like a business manager like you or like your team or something, but they're kind of finding themselves stuck. They don't want to take that step forward, or they're stuck, they're frozen. What would you suggest? What would be your advice to help them move through that from your perspective?
Yeah, that I think we'll always find an excuse not to do something. And so, I've heard many people say this, and so has become one of my favorite things: is better to just start than be perfect. And so I think that the longer we hold off on doing things, the more we are doing something out of fear or not doing something out of fear. And the worst that happens is somebody says no, the pictures don't turn out good, you feel a little embarrassed, whatever it is, you make a mistake. But the best that could happen is the photos turn out amazing, or you get a ton of new clients, or you make all the money, or whatever the thing is. And I just think that so much of the time we worry about how we're going to come across or how something's going to work out, when really, if we just kind of dove in and did it, we would get there so much faster. And I think it would be, really, we're so much more successful, I think, when we do that. But we will always find reasons to tell ourselves not to. We'll always find reasons to negotiate ourselves down. We'll always find the thing. And so that's, I think, the biggest thing is the longer we just sit in fear because we are afraid of what the outcome is, the more we hold ourselves back. And I think that's part of it too, is when you let yourself just sort of dive into it, right? Or jump in not knowing, like, you're so much more open to success and open to something that you didn't even imagine could happen. I never thought I would be sitting here and talking to people and talking about my business and having this crazy 15 people that I, when I was just like, I don't know, I'm going to do this thing and not go to school anymore. And, it's like 7 years later, who would have imagined that I have a 15-person team and all these things are happening. And so that wouldn't have happened if I was like, well, I don't know what, and if I kept waiting, and so I think don't buy your own excuses, you know?
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. And challenge them a little bit and say, and I think the biggest question I have when I'm doing something is, am I not doing this because of fear? And if the answer is yes, then it's okay, then I got to do it. If I'm not doing it because I know it's a bad decision and I'm going to lose money for sure, okay, maybe don't do it. But really get in touch with yourself, because you always know. And so don't not do something because you're afraid. And I think that's the biggest thing is, we all know why we're not doing things or why we are doing things. And so I think that's the thing is, get out of your own way and don't listen to your own bullshit.
Mm. Oh my gosh, I love that. So powerful. Oh, okay. We will, of course, have links to all of your good stuff in the show notes, and thank you for sharing all of your amazing wisdom. But for people who are like me, who are like, screw the show notes, I just want to go to Instagram right now. How can they find you or get in contact? Where's the best place?
Yeah, Instagram, I am BizMagic Co. And I do a lot there, a lot of free advice and information. It's where you and I connected. And my website also, where you can always contact me there, which is bizmagic.co.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Patty. This
Thank
has been
you so
awesome.
much.
If you're a new coach who's ready to finally sign your first 2 high-ticket clients, but you're stuck wondering what you're missing, then the Brave Coach Breakthrough is for you. It's my 3-month one-on-one coaching program where we blend strategy and mindset to help you confidently sign clients without feeling salesy. Spots are limited. Book your free strategy call now to see if this is the right fit for you. Come over to tiffanygstudios.com, TIFFANY G for golf, STUDIOS.com, or find me over on Instagram at Tiffany G Studios and DM me the word breakthrough to get a link to book your call. Let's get you paid to coach and change lives. Thanks for listening to the Business Bravery Podcast. Has this episode inspired you to do something brave? Even if it's only send a difficult email, please share it with me on Instagram or other social media channels. Feel free to tag me at Tiffany G Studios. That's TIFFANY G for golf, STUDIOS, no spaces, no underscores, etc. Or you can use the hashtag Business Bravery Podcast so that I can cheer you on, and together we can inspire other coaches and course creators to do brave things in their business and life. Now, I'm Tiffany, and I'll leave you with this one last thing. What's one brave thing you're going to do today? It doesn't have to be big. Even the smallest steps can create the most massive results. So again, feel free to share it with me either publicly or privately so that I can cheer you on. That's it from me. Until next time, bye for now.